Hi class, my name is Omar Salim, and the topic I've chosen was the Sandy Hook shooting, which occurred in Connecticut in the United States in 2012. So an overview of the event, it took place in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and it occurred at Sandy Hook Elementary School, which is a kindergarten through 4th grade school. The exact date of the event was December 14th in 2012, which is about 4 years and 4 months ago, and it took place around 9:30, and the event lasted anywhere between 9:35 to 9:40 is when they heard the last gunshots. A little bit of demographics about Sandy Hook, Connecticut. The socioeconomic status is upper middle class. It's majority Caucasian, and there was approximately 456 students enrolled in that school during that year. So what happened here was there was one perpetrator who was the shooter. It was Adam Lanza. He was 20 years old, 6 foot, and weighed about 112 pounds, and he committed suicide. He used 3 weapons for this mass shooting. One of them was a Bushmaster automatic rifle, a Glock 10, and a Sig Sauer 9mm handgun. So 2 handguns and a rifle. Police also found a shotgun that was in the car in his trunk, which he did not use. And here's the picture of Adam Lanza and the 3 weapons used. So the Bushmaster is a fully automatic military law enforcement type weapon, and the Sig Sauer is just a regular 9mm concealed carry pistol, and the Glock 9mm. The one he had was a 10mm, but this is just a reference for you guys to see what kind of weapons he entered the school with. So a little bit about Adam Lanza. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and they believe that there's an onset of schizophrenia which nobody was aware of, and that's due to the increased isolation he had. He would communicate with he had a fallout with his father after his mom and dad got divorced, and he communicated with his father only through email, communicated with his mom, who lived in the same house, only through email. And just a little bit of background about why these guns were even in his possession. Um, his mom, Nancy, was a gun enthusiast who had at least 20 other weapons in the house. And obviously, it was not properly stored, which is why Adam had very easy access to these weapons. And he's been shooting since he was since he was at the age of 6. His mom would take him to the gun range, and he would be able to shoot his guns there. So he did have enough practice to be able to hit targets. Adam Adam was addicted to mass shootings. He actually had a list of them, which police found at his home, and he was very obsessed with the first-person shooter games like Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, Battlefield, and Metal Gear Solid. These are all very violent games, and that's all he did. After he stopped talking to everybody for about a year and only communicated through email to his mom, and he recently had a fallout with his friend too. So due to all these incidents that occurred in his life, kind of set him off. And the reason he picked Sandy Hook, there's really an unknown reason behind it. Just the only thing police had to say was that was the only nearest building that had a lot of people in it. So during this incident, 28 people were found dead, 2 were non-fatally injured, and the 28 people included the shooter who committed suicide, the shooter's mom, and the 20 elementary school kids ages 6 and 7. 6 staff members were killed, and the event timeline, they say Adam arrived to the premises at about 9:30 a.m., and the whole shooting lasted from 9:35 to about 9:47 is when the last gunshots were heard and he committed suicide. And here's just a couple of pictures of all of the people that were deceased. and we have the teachers up there, and then we have the rest of the students, and then we have Nancy, his mom. So the key players and participants here, the Sandy Hook first responders had actually a lot of people that responded. This town is mostly a volunteer town, so besides the actual safety responders, a lot of them are volunteer fire, rescue, and EMS. But the people that showed up were the Connecticut State Police Department, ATF showed up, the FBI showed up. The first people on the scene were actually Newton Police Department's vehicles that were the first ones to show up and engage the suspect after he had committed suicide. And we had other municipal police departments that also showed up to help. They even had some off-duty officers that heard about this or witnessed the event from the chaos that was going on outside, and actually went in to the scene and decided to help out. Other people included the Newton Volunteer Ambulance Corps, which provided EMTs and ambulances, the Sandy Hook Volunteer Fire and Rescue, the U.S. Marshal Service, and the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and the Sandy Hook Fire Department. So, the role of public health, besides they promoted a gun violence prevention group after this incident, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection provided the first responders, the public health officials at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, and they provided grief counseling centers for the public and the victims that witnessed this event. And they're just helping families with resources like mental health services too. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner also showed up. The Emergency Services Unit showed up. Volunteer opportunities for mental health services was provided through local health departments. The Newton Emergency Operations Center was also used to be the headquarters to relay on all information between different departments. The Red Cross was there too, and a lot of mental health and grief counseling was provided either on the scene or they were transferred to other buildings to be able to counsel and to be able to go over the traumatic experience that these kids went through. So the role of public health was minimal in the Sandy Hook tragedy. The only reason I say that is because based on all the other topics we'd have chosen, public health had more of a role due to the incident itself being a mass shooting. Public health was minimal in the sense of the local health departments didn't really provide much, and the tragedy afterwards caused a huge uproar throughout the country, and it increased public health efforts in terms of gun violence and mental health, and the aftermath caused more studies to be published towards gun theft, gun storage training, and concealed gun carrying, and the spur towards mental health and mental health awareness also increased. So, I just feel like it was lacking because the town itself needed an increase in education efforts in terms of gun violence, mental illness, and proper gun storage, which it should have been beforehand and preventative, rather than really there's nobody out there in the community advocating for people to really look into mental health illness and having guns in the home. So the assessment of the response, it was actually quite well. It was exceptional. The crisis was handled appropriately and efficiently, and it was very immediate. The first officer actually responded within 3 minutes. It was actually 2 minutes and 40-something seconds, and they followed the proper protocol, which you have to wait for 4 police officers to be on scene before you can breach the building. And there was a good communication between first responders through all departments, and members from each department were stationed at the EOC, and triage was appropriately set up too outside of the Sandy Hook Elementary School at the front doors to be able to help people that were injured. And actually, police ensured everyone's safety first and cleared the building while notifying others to grab the injured and transfer them to EMS or hospitals. Officers even used their own vehicles to take some injured people that were in critical condition or needed counseling, or they were just hysterical due to the horrific scene. And there's an appropriate perimeter that was set up. They placed the EMS outside of the school, and they had them in a hot zone where they took people there just to ensure that EMS was safe. And they had a coordinated response to treat victims. They had the EMS, fire, transportation to hospitals was provided, and mental health services and grief counseling was provided too. There was no lack of staff. There was plenty of enough, and due to it being a volunteer type of town, they had excess that actually showed up, and there was volunteer services for all departments. So they also developed an incident command system and a remote command center at the EOC. There was a public information office that informed media, kept them up to date about what's going on, but it was away from the active scene. And they did that for many reasons, not just due to the horrific scene, but they also wanted to ensure their safety. A lot of people actually got PTSD from the images that they witnessed. The Newton Firehouse was used to reunite parents, and a temporary morgue and other investigative units were located in the school's parking lot. So a couple of things that I saw they could improve on during this, and also there was one report that was published and it wasn't that thorough, and they didn't want to conduct a more thorough response or assessment of the response. And that could be due to they don't want to really put down police efforts due to the tragedy, and they don't want other police departments kind of pointing hands at people. That was just in one of the articles I've read. But based on the scenario itself, officers could be trained to breach mass shootings differently rather than wait for 4 officers to show up. They could just have 1 officer call backup and then engage the suspect. It does put the officer's life at a higher risk, but with proper training, police officers should be able to breach the building and take out the shooter. Because although the first officer arrived within 3 minutes to the scene, it took about 11 minutes for them to actually go into the building because you had to wait for 3 other police officers. The school can also hire a resource police officer, and all departments responded can take FEMA trainings. It did not say that. I could not find anything at all that stated that there were no FEMA trainings available or that they had taken them. They could use better radios because some police officers and emergency first responders had to use their cell phones to communicate and relay information back to headquarters. One big issue during this tragedy was traffic control. There was only one road that they used to access, and it was eventually ordered by the state police, which arrived 22 minutes later, and the Sandy Hook Fire Department is the one that controlled traffic. And due to that, there was a lot of issues trying to get to the building. Since they only had one route that everybody used, they could have implemented other routes and better control traffic beforehand to make it a much smoother process. In terms of preparedness, police was prepared. They arrived quickly. They engaged according to protocol. Proper safety and disaster relief personnel responded, and a cleanup crew also showed up to help. Immediate disaster relief efforts started. As a matter of fact, it only took 1 day to be able to clear everything out from inside the school and get the bodies out and start cleanup, which is pretty fast. The appropriate amount of staff responded. Multiple volunteers also responded to help, and all personnel were properly trained in their line of duty. And a lot of responders actually that showed up to this were cross-trained previously through other jobs or careers they've held before. There was a registered nurse that was a police officer. There was a couple of police officers trained in EMS and search and rescue and even mental health counselors. So they were able to provide those services too. It just happened to be a coincidence. So, for resilience, Sandy Hook has returned to normal, although the memories of what occurred still lives there. The tragedy won't be forgotten, but they also wanted to move past it due to the kids that started to attend Sandy Hook Elementary School again, and they want to decrease the PTSD that some people experienced, such as the staff members that were in the building that came back to work at the school again. Other things people have done, though, were relocate to different homes and neighborhoods within the Sandy Hook itself. Sandy Hook Elementary School got a grant for $50 million to rebuild the school, completely tear it down and rebuild it to have appropriate security measures and to just bring a new vision into the town, so it's not remembered as where the shooter came and had a mass murder for a lot of people. A big issue, though, is the victims still are facing some trauma, PTSD from the tragedy, coping with the death of loved ones and the horrific images they withstood and saw if they picked up their kids, and just the whole tragedy of the scene itself. And that included parents, students, teachers, and even the first responders that responded to the crisis. A lot of them faced PTSD, and as a matter of fact, one police officer actually had to resign and go to counseling, and he has to take medication in order for him to sleep. And a lot of others have gotten some form of PTSD from this incident. Basic security measures have been taken into account rebuilding the school, and mental health centers and counseling centers actually increased a lot in that town. And they're there to even help the community. A lot of them also do advocate for it within the community for free. Something they can also improve on, though, is counseling for all the first responders, and that should be done per department due to the incident, and have possibly a therapist to come in and just go over the event with everybody that faced this in order to decrease the PTSD or to be able to accept the tragedy and move past it. And here are just some pictures of the memorials in the town, remembering the kids and any other loved ones that were affected. So a lot of updates have occurred in the school, and besides it being rebuilt, the school reopened, a lot of the staff actually returned. Some of the kids re-enrolled, and the reason I say some is because a lot of them during that time period to when the school got rebuilt were in either first grade or second grade, and they've moved on to middle school. There was a report that showed that they surveyed the parents and they would actually send them back to the same school due to the improvement that they actually had rebuilding the school. All the activities have resumed back to normal. The town is starting to actually just relive their normal routine life, and the tragedy just seems to be something that has occurred, but it's not living in the town yet. There's still. So the school included better safety measures. A sense of safety and routine life has returned to normal for the students and parents and staff. And the school decided not to include a memorial on campus just to make the school function more as an elementary school rather than to just be a memorial that they're remembering a horrific tragedy that occurred that could scare new students or the old students, and it would just be a reoccurrence of remembering the event. So they wanted to take that out. A lot of new features in the school were developed to support mental health, such as support rooms, hug rooms, therapy dogs come in once a week, and brief supportive interventions. And in-class activities include art, relaxation, and coping, which are new services offered at the school which were not there before. And here's a picture of the new Sandy Hook Elementary School building. And there's a lot of changes that might not be apparent when you first look at this. But if you notice, the school itself is actually elevated, and the entrance to the school is gated somewhat by a fence, but it looks like a happy wooden type of environment that the kids can enjoy. That was part of creating this new building to being a fortress, but yet not to lose the image of the elementary school and to look at it through the kids' eyes. And actually, in rebuilding this new school, they actually took a lot of opinions from the elementary school kids themselves. What they decided to add was there's a one-way entrance only now for all people entering the premises. So as you can see, there's a gate there, and there's only one road to take to be able to get into the school now. And there's a security guard posted at the entrance. And all the parking lots now have been designed to be in the front of the school, and they have separate parking for staff and visitors. And that just improves that nobody can park in the back where the staff parking lot used to be, where the shooter actually got out and entered the building. So any suspicious activity here going on, it can be clearly witnessed, and it can be reported. And there's actually now 3 security guards, 1 at the parking lot at all times, 2 in the school, and now they've added a resource police officer. And the new building, the floor plan includes a lot of windows, and everyone can see someone suspicious entering the building, and there's cameras beyond the parking lot to monitor anyone coming in. So there's a lot of improvements that took place to prevent any massacre to occur again in the future. And here's a list of references. Hope you guys enjoyed the PowerPoint. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.